moved on him from now, the amount of acceleration from his signing bonus would be...
It's $20 million.
It'd be huge.
$20 million.
Coach, what does the acceleration mean?
So it's spread out over the life of the contract, but as soon as you cut a player or trade a player, that all comes into the current year or to next season. And typically that number in the first year or second year of a contract is so big that you can't cut a guy, you can't trade a guy. And that's why when we talk about, Odell being happy and all those decisions that go into it, is once you sign a player to a contract like that, they really have the leverage on the organization, as opposed to the organization being able to control the player or at least have some sort
moderate his behavior.
Yeah, moderate his behavior.
Listen, I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this. I want people to understand. They absolutely 100% they wouldn't. They can't cut him. It'd be like $45 million acceleration if they cut him. The way his contract's structured, they could trade him. It would be $20 million accelerated against the cap this season immediately, and because they moved on from Snacks and Eli Apple, they could make that work. So it's on the board. It would be irrational.
As an owner, I'd be pretty happy where I could have paid a guy $8 million, but I get to pay him $20 million, and then I have a salary cap hit.
Right.
I mean, if it was me, I'd be like, yeah, that's really good business. Let's do that.
That's
cost me another $12 million for a guy I could have got for 8, and I only played for 8 games. So if they make that decision, there better be a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of will sees about next season.
Well, that's almost exactly what I was going to say. Like I understand teams calling about Odell Beckham. He's on pace for 1,500 yards this year. I understand why if I were a team and I needed a wide receiver, I'd be curious if the Giants want to cut bait. But it would be totally irrational of them to cut bait. Like, it's not like he hasn't been productive. He did the interview, which everyone hated. I understand that. And the team's been awful. But it's hard to assign much of the blame on the team being awful on him, at least more on him than on anybody else. And so if you were to trade him now, what it says is you have totally changed your opinion of the player in 3 months. And it's not like the interview should have shocked anybody, as far as, because like you said, once you are who you are, and usually getting money just exacerbates who you are, doesn't change who you are. So I understand why teams would call about Odell. I have no idea why the Giants would even consider trading Odell, particularly if they're going to be drafting a quarterback. What a quarterback's best friend could be is an elite wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm going to put the Odell thing in the Lincoln Riley category. Only going to make one comment about it because I know it's not going to happen. Lincoln Riley's not going to be the coach of the Cleveland Browns. Odell Beckham is going to be on the New York Football Giants. That's a decision that they made months ago. Now, what are some of the other changes about Eli being the quarterback? Those things are possible, but Odell is with the Giants. If there's one thing, Barkley's going to be with the Giants and Odell's. Now, if you want something else, you can call. People have talked about it. If you didn't trade for Odell before the contract, you're not going to be able to get him in the first year of the contract. So I think there's other legitimate things that the Giants are going to have to do as far as wholesale changes. I don't believe Odell is going to be one of the changes.
Well, the Giants get rid of Eli Apple. They get rid of Snacks. Clearly, they're in some semblance of rebuilding mode. Can you build a franchise around a wide receiver? Or does it look like there's a quarterback coming out that you could do that around?
Well, I don't know if the starting point is going to be there, but they have made a significant commitment to him, and then they have that piece in place. So that's got to be part of the building process. But what I'd like to see or hear from is Dave Gettleman. We heard so much from Dave Gettleman prior to the season. He was pretty much interviewed every week, and he had a lot to say about where the team was going, why they were making the decisions they were making. I'd like to hear that now. A lot of times what happens is you get mid-season and the head coach goes out week after week and decisions are made, and the head coach goes out week after week, but the decisions aren't his decisions. They're coming from the top down. Maybe they're collective, but why don't we hear from him during the bye week? What are his thoughts about trading these players? What are his thoughts about signing the left tackle that he signed, about the once-in-a-generation back that they only run 13 times a game? Let's hear some collective thoughts about the progress of this team. Suddenly it's radio silence.
Yeah, because the reason why he's not talking is because he doesn't have good things to say. And you're right about the coach. It's not fair to the coach. They are sending Shermer out there, and we know they're rebuilding. It should come from up top. Either the owner or the general manager should say that we're rebuilding, and then it makes sense to trade Snacks. It makes sense to trade Eli Apple. It makes sense to build a bench Eli. So in in doing that, you actually empower the coach compared to doing what they're doing now, where they don't have any direction what they're going to do. So the coach is like, it's week to week if we're going to see Eli or not.
The other big news we talked about was that when asked if they were going to start Eli after the bye, Pat Shurmur said, we'll see. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think they're going to start him, as C has said, until they get to 10 losses. I don't know if there's a hard and fast number like that. I think they will give Kyle Lauletta at least 2 games and no more than 4 games at the end of the year. But I do not think after firing the GM and the head coach and having all the controversy last year of benching Eli Manning, that after the bye, 8 games into this year, they're going to bench Eli Manning.
It just feels like we're watching the same movie again.
Yes.
Where last year the head coach was pressured to bench Eli Manning. It was his fault. It was all Eli's fault. So they bench him. Then Eli becomes a sympathetic character, or you know, where he has that role. And then the head coach gets fired. And now we're in the same situation where we may have to bench Eli Manning, or they're getting pressure to do that. You know, is it going to be the same deal? What about running the ball more? What about running the ball more than 13 times a game? You've got this back that you have a
he said Hall of Famer. He said my mom. Gettleman said my mom knows. She knows we're going to draft him.
And his mom probably knows that he should carry the ball more than he's carrying right now. Because when you have a quarterback that's not mobile, being able to establish a running game, and is he great in between the tackles? No. But does he have a chance to hit a home run every time he touches the ball? Yeah, so keep giving him the ball to allow Eli the opportunity to build some play action off of that.
And I would argue, if you take a running back at number 2, if the argument to taking him at number 2 is, we just thought he was the best player. It wasn't about quarterback, wasn't about position need. It was, we thought he was the best player. Then this whole, he's not great between the tackles, use his rookie year to see if he can become great between the tackles, or at least better than you thought between the tackles. Like a player of that caliber, I don't think we should say, maybe you disagree, Saquon Barkley will never be great between the tackles, just not in his skill set. Like, then he's a specialist. And you can't draft a specialist at number 2. Like, you have to draft the back that, yes, can hit a home run, yes, he can go catch the football, but also can be a guy when need be that you can hand the ball to between the tackles. Like, if anything else, you need to use the rest of this year to help Saquon take the steps towards reaching his full potential as a pro.
Ever since kids were 8 years old, you give them the football, you know where they run to?
Besides,
run to daylight. That's where running backs run to. And when you don't have holes to run through, you know where they're going to run? They're going to run outside. So when you have a bad offensive line, so you can say what you want about your running back, until they spend some capital and get that right, that offensive line, the quarterback, that's a second and third question, because you don't want to put a young quarterback behind that bad offensive line. So they got to spend some money on the offensive line and be able to get that right, because all the money they threw at the Nate Solder, I knew it. I knew he wasn't going to be a dominant run blocker. I knew he wasn't going to help them the way the Giants thought, but no one else was saying that. So the Giants have a number of questions they must answer, and a lot of it has to do with the talent.
And you asked Jenna, is there this quarterback coming out of the draft? Because one thing that is true about the NFL in 2018, most teams, they might be wrong, but the vast majority of teams in this league think they have their quarterback. They've either drafted him in the last couple of years, or they're an older quarterback that isn't going away anytime soon. You would say the Giants are on the list that need a quarterback. The Bucs might be on the list. We'll see about Oakland. Oakland says they're not on the list.
Jaguars should be on the list.
Jaguars should be on the list, but they're not going to be drafting in the top 5, we don't think. But this might not be the year for it. The kid that everyone says would go number 1, Justin Herbert from Oregon, not exactly a place known to be an NFL quarterback factory, he might stay in college another year to play with his brother the following year. After that, you're talking about Drew Lock from Missouri. Maybe your guy Haskins is going to come out, but as much as you like Dwayne Haskins, is Dwayne Haskins really going to be coming out early in the number 1 pick of the draft? Like, is that what we're talking about? So even if they are deciding, which they clearly are, next year we're moving on from Eli Manning, where's the quarterback coming from? Particularly if Herbert does not come out.
I don't care about Haskins. I don't care about any of that stuff. All I care about is the next 8 games. They're in a bye week. What are they going to do so that the team knows they're committed to winning? You start trading away players. You don't give an explanation to it. Then there's going to be a bunch of players in the locker room who are going to make a business decision, you know, whether they play or whether they don't play.
Yes.
There's got to be a commitment to this head coach, to this program, to this philosophy, to where everybody's going to play, everybody's going to play hard, everybody's going to be committed to New York Giants over the next 8 games, or they're not going to be here. So forget about the quarterback next year. Let's make this team better right now, and let's see some tangible things that are different than what we saw the first 8 games.
Coach is fired up. I love it.
The
It's just like
bats.
the quarterback.
Yeah. Cue the bats. We're going to break. Coming up.
cue the bats.
New reports of Aaron Rodgers' reaction to Ty Montgomery's misstep. Wait till you hear what he has to say about
Coach
that.
is fired up before.